You're listening to the Balanced Educator Podcast, episode number 133. Welcome to the Balanced Educator. We're your hosts, Kaylee
and Josiane from EduCalm. Our intention is to equip and empower you to feel more calm, balanced, and joyful in all aspects of your life.
Hello there and welcome. We are so happy to have you here with us today. So this week, Josiane and I have both switched to online learning. So for me, teaching in high school, I've switched back. We did this once already this year in January, and then luckily we were back in person with lots of COVID procedures in place. But now we've had to switch back to online. And for Josiane, who teaches in elementary school, this is going to be her first time switching to online. So we have definitely been feeling a range of emotions this week as we are kind of flipping the switch and changing things up with our students and how we interact with them. And, when times are challenging, sometimes we just need the wisdom of a grandmother to soothe us and refill our tank. So the timing could not be more perfect that I got to have a wonderful conversation today with Grandmother Pahan. Pahan Pte San Win has a degree in social work from the University of Calgary. Grandmother Pahan has provided counseling support to residential school survivors and traumatized women. She's been spiritual caregiver to incarcerated youth at the Manitoba Youth Centre and to incarcerated men at Stony Mountain Institution. These days, she works with children in Louis Riel and Pembina Trail school divisions, providing Indigenous knowledge and the love and guidance of a grandmother. She's Lakota, Cree, and Métis with roots that reach back to Wood Mountain, Saskatchewan, and Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. In 2017, Pahan received an Honoring Our Elders Award from the Aboriginal Circle of Educators in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Now, before we get into the episode, I just want to talk about a resource that could be helpful to you if you are either in the classroom or if you're teaching remotely, and it's EduCalm Classroom, our online social emotional learning and mindfulness program that's ready to use in English and in French. All you have to do is log in, press play, and listen to the 2 or 5 minute guided audios guide you and your students through a calming mindfulness practice that will help you be ready for focused learning, whether that's online or whether you're in person teaching your students. So if you have an EduCalm Classroom membership already, just a reminder that in that membership, go into the remote learning theme and you'll have information there and resources to help you use this program online. So this is going to allow you to share it with parents of your students so that they can use this program at home. And it'll also give you ideas of how to integrate this program with remote learning in a way that we've seen the most success through testimonies from teachers teaching in lots of different locations. Now, if you don't have a paid membership to EduCalm Classroom, no worries. You can still get a lot of value from our free trial. These are all ready to use mindfulness and social emotional learning lessons. You do not have to be the expert, but you can use what's there to help integrate wellness into your classroom and to manage big emotions and to get ready for learning. So check that out at educalm.com. And you can sign up for the free trial there, which will give you unlimited access to the first unit in our program, Introduction to Mindfulness, as well as some training that can help you to get started. All right. Hopefully that can be useful for you. Again, that's educalm.com. Now, no further ado, pull up a chair, sit down, get comfy, grab a cup of tea, and enjoy this wonderful storytelling by Grandmother Pahan. Hello there, Pahan. Thank you so much for being on the podcast with us today.
It's my pleasure. I'm looking forward to it.
I feel so honored to have you here. The reason that Josiane and I wanted to have you on the podcast to connect with our audience was because you spoke at one of our school division-wide meetings, and you just had this beautiful message to share with teachers. And I just felt your message right down to my heart, and it felt like it was exactly what I needed to hear, and it created this sensation of opening in my heart. It was at a time at the beginning of the year where things were uncertain and there was so much on our plates and it felt overwhelming. And your voice and your story and your message just made me feel grounded and helped me to kind of take off any of that hard shell of worry that I was wearing and feel like, okay, let's do this. I can do this year. So I want to thank you for that to begin with. And then I just really wanted to have the opportunity to have you connect with our audience and hopefully give them that opportunity to kind of enjoy your message as medicine. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense.
So before we get started, could you introduce yourself to our audience and tell them a little bit about yourself and how life led you to where you are today?
My name is Pahan Pte San Win. It's in the Dakota language. It means gray swan, buffalo woman. My family is Cree, Lakota, and Métis. I grew up in Alberta and among the Cree, and then spent time in the Northwest Territories among the Dene and the Inuit and the Cree over there. And now at this stage of my life, here I am on the prairies among the Dakota and Lakota and Anishinaabe and many others. And my journey, that's good for you to know this about me. So I have a background in social work. I'm not an official educator, but I certainly am a teacher. And I spent the last 27 years working with people, all kinds of different populations of Indigenous people, and lots of trauma. And I also have a responsibility, a job to make prayers for people. So that's one of the things that I do. And, it's really nice to hear you talk about how my words impacted that day, because before I share, and especially with what you're talking about, everything you said about the environment and what people were going through was exactly what was on my mind. And I knew that. And, it's hard to be profound on demand. I'm not, I'm just a simple person. But I always pray before these things and I say, Creator, can you give me some good words? Because Creator knows what people need to hear. So it means when you say that, it means the prayer that I made, that's how it was answered. So it's really a good confirm. It's not me. It's actually me opening myself to how Creator wants to give me those good words. And then I just in turn share them with you. So that's my job. That's turned into my job. I am a grandmother and I have this wonderful job of going to schools and connecting with students and educators and administrators and the boards from a grandmother perspective. And I've been doing this for a few years, asking myself, what does this person need from a grandmother right now? And that is what I'd like to talk about today, is what I've learned by asking myself the question, what do these young people need from a grandmother right now?
That is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your story and some of the work that you're doing in the world. Your prayer of asking Creator to speak the words through you really resonates with me. That's actually a prayer that I pray before I go into school every day, before I start the podcast. I just ask that the creator, God, universe, I have this little prayer that I say, may your light and love flow through me. And especially before I give a presentation, when I'm feeling those nerves of what if I'm going to say the wrong thing or things like that, I just get calm and in that moment and have this thought that, well, the right thing is always going to come through if I allow it. Rather, it's not coming from me, it's coming from something bigger. So that really resonated with me. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I would love to hear more about what you as a grandmother, that asking yourself that question, that is such a beautiful question.
I would love to tell you about this. Well, first of all, what I have been taught is that children are sacred. My husband, he's a Dakota person. He's fluent in the language, and he always says, "Waka ija." That's our children, and it means they are holy too. And I think that's the beginning of doing good relationship with children, is when I recognize they are holy too. These little sacred beings that have been born into this life have a sacred spirit. They're pure, they're perfect, this the way that they are. And they're wise. They have this, the wisdom of a sacred spirit that is guiding them, that they have access to, that hasn't been clouded over by the time here in this physical world that sometimes and usually happens to us. So we notice that our children will have sacred experiences. They might see these ancestors that went home. They might see them sometimes, or they might be able to hear them. And somebody will say, "Oh, they have an imaginary playmate." But for us, we acknowledge that when children, especially as the small ones, they have this sacredness that is sometimes fades or gets clouded over. We have less of a connection. We have to work harder to have that connection to sacredness, but they just be, and they just are. So I know that. One of the jobs or work that I've done was to be the grandmother for the youth at the Manitoba Youth Center. And they taught me a lot, and I like sharing what I learned from the youth there. Every youth who ends up at the Manitoba Youth Center is in trouble. They have committed some kind of a crime, and now they have to be incarcerated for that. So when I first got to the center, they didn't have a grandmother. And so I said, "So what are you looking for?" And they said, Can you decide in what way that you will work here?" And so I thought, I like that. I wish everybody would have always said that to every job I ever had.
That's a good question. What can you bring to this?
Yeah, exactly. And can you develop the position the way that you think it needs to be? So that's when I started asking myself that question. So what does this little community need from a grandmother? And I went around and I talked to staff and I talked to youth, and they told me the things that they thought the community needed from a grandmother. And they also youth told me what they didn't want. And what they didn't want was me to stand in front of them in a circle and tell them things, give them little lectures and teachings about what they should do and what they shouldn't do. They didn't want that. They had that, and they wanted something different. So I thought to myself, well, okay, if I get to do whatever I think is best, what is it that I want to do? And then the young person inside of me said, well, I want to have fun. That's for sure. And what's fun for me, and what kind of gifts do I bring to this relationship that I'm going to have with them? And I started to list the kinds of things that were both what was fun for me and what was something that I could teach, that I was good at. And that list included things like beading, sewing regalia, singing traditional songs, powwow dancing, making prayers, soup and bannock. Boy, have I ever made a lot of soup and bannock in my life. But those kids need to know all those things too. So that's what I decided would be almost like the bait. I wanted to teach them, and I wanted to offer them having a relationship with a grandmother. But I had to earn their trust, because for the youth that are there, they have had their trust broken many, many times. They have no reason to trust me. I have to earn it. So I thought I would focus on the youth that were going to be there the longest. Though then you know that they've had a really tough time, because if they're going to be there a long time, they've been convicted of a charge that's significant and serious. So I thought, why don't I focus on them? Because I can't work and have this kind of relationship with over 100, like 120 kids at the same time. So I focused on the ones that I thought that I would have enough time with, and that probably really needed it. So the beading and the singing and the dancing, making regalia to dance at the powwow, the mural on the wall, all the things we did was the fun part of us learning how to trust each other and to be in relationship. And my job was, I had the freedom, unlike some educators who the kids have to know certain things by the end of the year. But my job was about relationship, learning how to have, I wanted to be the person that they doesn't break their trust, doesn't need anything from them. And also I wanted to hold up a mirror to all the wonderful qualities that I could see in them. So I needed opportunities to draw out what their special gifts are. And I understand that every single person, Creator puts these seeds inside of us, seeds of potential. And those seeds of potential do not get activated until they have the right fertile ground. And that was me offering them experiences. Oh, this is how you bead. And then as they start to work on that, then they practice it and they get some knowledge. That's the sun, that's the rain. So then these seeds of potential inside of them start to grow. And as they grow, then they can grow into becoming the gift that was there, that Creator put there. And, some of those youth are so amazing. It's just so amazing. I've taught, I don't know how many hundred, probably a couple hundred adults and youth how to bead, how to make a medallion. Most of us, we have to practice pretty hard to do a good job. But some of those youth, the first time that they did that project, it was just like an expert. It was inside of them, but without the opportunity, they might not have uncovered the potential that was there. So what I'm doing is I'm nurturing that. I'm coaxing it to come out. And when I see it starting to emerge, then I have to hold up my mirror and show them, aha, look at what you can do. Oh, and by the way, everybody, all of us, we're practicing and practicing to get good, but you're able to do this the first time. That rarely happens. This is something special that Creator gave to you. Whether that's beading or dancing or singing or writing or art or making people laugh, the list is endless of the kind of seeds of potential that are inside of us. That became my job. And so it's a wonderful job to look for qualities, abilities, special characteristics and gifts in others. And then when you see them, acknowledge them and tell them, oh, I see you're good at this. Oh, I see you know how to be a good friend. Oh, that's very kind of you. Holding up the mirror. I don't give the kids anything. I don't even teach them anything. All I really do is I help to acknowledge what's already inside of them and what maybe they didn't have a chance for that to come out yet. The youth at the Manitoba Youth Center have had a very difficult past. They've gone through things that no child should go through, no adult should go through. And I knew they would tell me the stories, and they were heartbreaking stories of the things that had happened in their life, and then how they ended up in care, and then the next kids, the next step on that journey is to end up incarcerated. At the time, 95% of children in care were Indigenous. 95% of the children who were incarcerated were Indigenous. It's the same kids. So, I asked myself, and maybe educators, maybe you ask this out of yourself too, is, of all the things that have happened in these kids' lives, I can't fix that. I can't change what's happened. I can't change what's happening. I can't correct the injustices and the problems that they have in their families or in their communities I can't fix any of that. But what I learned was, and what became my motto was, all I need is one good day. If this moment, if this hour, if this afternoon that I have with her, I can be the best grandmother that she could ever have. I can love her. I can have a positive environment where she feels safe and where she can be herself, where she can have fun, where her gifts can be developed and she can let them grow. And then what do we do with gifts once they come to fruition? We share them with the community. And why do we do that? Because it makes us strong. Then we have value, and I saw that, youth who have so much trouble getting along with others, and I would say, no, I need her in my group. And they're are you sure you want her in your group? She's has a rough time. The kids don't like her. I'm like, no, let's try. And then in time, working with her until she becomes one of the mentors, because she has extraordinary gifts, and using her as a role model. So moving out from that place of being the one who's always in trouble that the other kids don't like, and because she's mean, she says mean things. She's, her hurt comes out in that way. Moving into giving her experiences where now people can depend on her. Everyone knows, wow, can I see what you did? Wow, yours is really nice. It's giving me ideas. Or can you show others how to do this? And she becomes a mentor. I found kids need, even kids with those circumstances, which are the most extreme, they need the same things. They need to feel safe. And that means no more harming themselves and nobody else harming them, and them not be harming anyone else. Having the things that they need. So we know how many kids live in poverty. It's wrong. Wondering how much they're hungry, worrying about how their mom's going to get groceries. That's not for kids. It doesn't belong to them. Then he ends up incarcerated because he's selling drugs, but he's making money to give to his mom to buy groceries. That's a survivor, Those taking or maybe providing what kids need, when those things are in place, that's when they can grow and thrive. That's why I try to create the environment, and I'm sure educators, I give you permission to do this too, to create the environment that your kids need to be able to thrive. I couldn't work with 100 kids and do that. I had to keep the group small enough, and of course our kids have lots of special needs. Many of them have FASD. So I had to keep this group small enough so that I could work on that relationship with each of them. And if that meant I needed to rotate kids, which it usually did, I did that so that I wanted to be the grandmother that they needed, who loves them just the way they are, and who is not lecturing them or judging them or telling them that they need to be different or they need to do things differently. That's what I wanted to be for those youth. And I feel like I achieved that. Maybe not every moment, but enough moments. Those were the most important teachings that they gave me, is that if I just have this one moment, then with that youth, all I need is that one good moment or one good hour or one good class or one good afternoon. That's all we need. We don't have to fix everything that went before, and we don't have to fix everything that's going to come. This interaction that I'm having right now can provide the nurturance and the parenting that they maybe got missed. No, it's not their parents' fault. They're dealing with all the things they're dealing with. But if I can be that person for that little bit of time, then I want to be. Early in my career as a social worker, I remember reading research that said when they went and talked to adults who had had trouble as a youth, but yet were resilient and had ended up landing on their feet. And they asked those adults, what was it? What do you think it was that helped you to be able to be resilient? And many of them said the same thing. They said, well, it was that one teacher. It was my auntie who always believed in me. It was my grandmother who showed me this or taught me this or loved me. It was that person who believed in me and that made all the difference. And that's who you are.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And I think one thing that I am continuously learning to deal with as a teacher is that feeling that I wish I could do more. I wish I could be more for each student. I wish this feeling that I might not be doing enough. And even though when I think about it, I show a lot of love to my students, and that is my number one priority. But there's always kind of that voice in my head that's like, oh, you should have checked on this student today. Why didn't you spend a little more time with this student? So I think your perspective of, you don't have to be it all for everyone is something that I need to keep reminding myself of and learning through experience. So wisdom that comes from a grandmother. I'm not there yet.
Kaylee, you are there because you are doing enough. And the more you acknowledge that and that love that you're giving to your students, give it to yourself too. Reward yourself. Take a little bit of extra time. Acknowledge her. She's doing an incredible job. She's going to be better in 6 months than she is right now because she's evolving. But wow, how spectacular. That, all that you give to yourself will come back, and it will always be, end up gravitating to the students that you have. Mm-hmm. You first, it's like, you're feeding yourself, and then you have more energy, more love, more wisdom to give to them. And don't do it because of them. Do it because of you. All educators, you have a very, very important job. And you're doing it. Your motives for doing it, is about kids. Look after yourselves as much as you can. Become experts at it. And that's what the work that you're doing is, teaching people, how do we really make our experience of life joyful, fun, rewarding, meaningful. Because the more we are doing that, then that comes out with everyone around us, your families and everyone you touch. That's why I started with it. I always say this to people. I want to have fun. Like, whatever we're doing, it needs to be fun.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be, oh no, I have to go to this meeting now, or whatever. Like, let's have fun with whatever it is that we're doing. And kids are great at teaching us about having fun. So I try to learn from them.
That is so beautiful and such great wisdom. And by listening to your story, there were so many little moments that popped out to me that I kind of got goosebumps. And I just, like I said, that opening feeling, I really got to experience that again by listening to your stories today. I'm going to be taking a lot from this conversation into my own personal life and into my classroom. And yeah, I think I do need to keep working on kind of giving myself credit. That's something that I always think that I'm doing better at it, because I purposely practice self-love, self-care. But those that teach are often the ones that really need to learn the lesson still. So I talk about it a lot, but I'm still practicing learning that lesson for myself and giving myself grace. And it's okay to not be perfect all the time. That's not the goal of life.
I'm still learning it too. It's okay. For all the parents and educators that are listening, I believe in you. Thank you for the good work that you're doing for the community. We really need you. And so I'm sending lots of love your way.
Thank you so much for spending your time with us today and sharing your wisdom. We truly appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful. And it's been fun.
All right. I hope you enjoyed listening to Grandmother Pahan's stories as much as I did. Your exit ticket for today is to reflect on one part of her story that felt soothing or relieving or opening to you. What was that one thing she said that resonated in your whole body and you could feel it down to your bones? Notice what that was. That is your teaching for today, and bring that feeling with you throughout your day, wherever it brings you today. For show notes, to check out more information about this episode, go to educalm.com/TBE 133. So that's educalme.com/TBE as in the Balanced Educator 133. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend or a colleague that you think would enjoy it too. Have a fantastic week. We appreciate you.